Every year, more than 350,000 people experience sudden cardiac arrest outside of a hospital, according to the American Heart Association, and 90% of the time, it's fatal. I'm joined now by pediatric cardiologist with Wolfson Children's Hospital, Khushboo Parikh. Good morning, Dr. Parikh.
Good morning, Ann.
And also on the line, sudden cardiac arrest survivor Lexi Sema. Good morning, Lexi. Good morning, Lexi.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us. Lexi, why don't we start off by you telling us what happened to you when you were a teenager?
Sure. So when I was 16 years old, I was running on a treadmill, doing something I've done every day of my life. I grew up an avid athlete, so this is no different day for me. While I was running on that treadmill, I went into sudden cardiac arrest, and before I even hit the floor, my heart had stopped. So thankfully, there was 3 people there who knew CPR and to grab an AED. So I was revived before I ever even saw an ambulance or went back to a hospital. And from that point, I had a ICD, which is an internal defibrillator, implanted, and I'm a healthy adult now.
And this was when you were 16 years old. Can I ask how old you are now?
Sure. I am 24 now.
Okay. And do you have a child of your own?
I do. I now have, she'll be 2 in April.
Congratulations. What, if anything, do you watch out for with her having had your experience? Is there anything that can be done at this stage to kind of look at whatever risk might be hereditary?
Yes, so they're not quite sure what condition I do have. I've had every testing in the book, but from the point that I got pregnant with my daughter, I had another round of genetic testing done because every year there's new genetic panels and genes that are coming out and being studied. So I had another genetic panel done, and then every 6 months to a year, she is being seen by an electrophysiologist just to make sure that everything is normal with her heart structure and rhythm. And she actually sees them on Tuesday just for another follow-up, but it's really just keeping in touch with her electrophysiologist to make sure that everything is still normal.
And Lexi, did you experience any symptoms before this happened when you were 16 years old?
No, not that I remember at all.
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Parikh, what is sudden cardiac arrest, and how is it different or distinct from just a heart attack?
So sudden cardiac arrest is essentially an electrical malfunction in the heart, wherein the heart just stops pumping blood to the organs, or essentially is an inefficient pumping. So vital organs like brain, lungs, kidneys stop getting perfused, and patients pass out or lose consciousness.
And a heart attack is something different than that, I guess.
Correct. So heart attack is more when you have the coronary arteries that supply the muscles of the heart, they get blocked or impede blood flow. So it's more like a plumbing problem versus an electrical malfunction, which is a sudden cardiac arrest.
And so how does this electrical malfunction occur?
So it could be from a varied etiologies. So whether it's pediatric or adult, both of them can have it. And in our realm of pediatrics, we see more in terms of anatomical problems or congenital heart defects that they're born with. It could be from thickening of heart muscles, which is called cardiomyopathies. It can be from abnormal electrical pathologies like channelopathies, what we call them. So a myriad of conditions could cause sudden cardiac arrest.
And that last one is kind of a medical term, but is that something that can be initiated by like a hard contact of some kind?
Yes. So it could be what we saw in Damar Hamlin's case. So it was when if you're hit on the chest at the correct time, or not a correct, but an inappropriate time on the electrical rhythm of the heart, then that puts you in what's called this non-perfusing rhythm, and that puts you at risk for cardiac arrest.
And so Lexi says that she's gone through a number of tests. Mm-hmm. They still don't know what her particular ailment is. So how are you able to test for a condition like this in advance?
So there are, yes. So we look for certain findings on EKGs, certain findings on echocardiograms, and then if there is a strong family history of sudden cardiac arrest, then we test for genetics and see if they're positive for any genes that could be associated with sudden cardiac arrest. But yes, there's still so much out there that we don't know. So still there are some conditions that we end up not able to identify or pinpoint as a cause of the sudden cardiac arrest.
But you are a pediatric cardiologist, which is a a unique specialty. I think a lot of people think of heart disease and heart ailments affecting much older populations. And we said at the beginning that sudden cardiac arrest affects hundreds of thousands of people every year. But what is specifically the problem as it pertains to children?
So in our athletes, so a large part of our athletes are still teenagers, which falls in the realm of our pediatric practice. And like congenital heart diseases or disease that you're born with, basically your heart is formed differently. Those fall into our realm. So abnormalities of these coronary arteries, so basically blood vessels that supply the heart muscles, if they are arising from an abnormal location, or if they have a genetic condition of thickening of their heart muscles, which prevents inadequate pumping, or also electrical malfunctioning in the heart, or what we called channelopathies, or abnormal electrical functioning of the heart, or genes that affect the function or electrical functioning of the heart. All of these are seen much earlier, and we see them more in the pediatric age group. And so those are some of the things that we look for when we are assessing for, or at least trying to identify kids if they're at risk for sudden cardiac arrest.
And so how many people are affected? How many children are affected?
The incidence varies, but it's somewhere between 1 in 50,000 to 100,000 athletes a year.
And is that in the globally, United States?
No, that's not the National Collegiate, the NCAA.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so there have been, as you alluded to, there have been a few very high profile instances of athletes, professional athletes, collapsing on camera and, having to be revived quickly. Obviously, time is very important. How do those incidents help raise awareness? Have you seen a greater awareness of the risks of sudden cardiac arrest?
Yeah, I think in the recent years we have seen a lot of awareness for teenagers, especially collapsing on the fields, and the concept of sudden cardiac arrest in pediatric population, and so not just like on the TV when we see, but a lot of like students, high school students, when they are playing, and if there's a certain kid who has a sudden cardiac arrest on the field, that raises awareness among coaches and teachers and parents to test their kids, to take some of their symptoms more seriously and get them evaluated by the pediatrician, get them evaluated by a cardiologist. And so, in the recent years, because of this uptick in awareness, overall, we've seen a lower incidence. We've seen the incidence fall a little bit in the sudden cardiac arrest.
Lexi, I know that your father has been active in trying to make sure that there are, defibrillator machines available, particularly on the sidelines, working with legislators to change the law to improve, those the availability of those types of machines. You've also been, an active voice on this issue. So why is it important to you and to your father to, be out in front of this issue and talking about it?
Well, yeah, exactly like you just said, it really takes just so much awareness because, when I was a 16-year-old and I died for no reason, everyone that was affected in our life is kind of had the same reaction. This only happens to old people. What the heck is this? So as much as, it is horrible that these stories are coming out, it really is a key piece to the puzzle to kind of make these people aware, just the general public, that these things do happen. And that comes into play with the AEDs and the CPR, cardiac response plans as well, because it really just is the awareness of recognizing the issue and then, having an action plan to live it out. Something that we always say is, I'm only alive because I was lucky. I'm only alive. I'm one of that 10%, as you previously stated, that live from this. And I'm lucky that there is an AED. I'm lucky that there are people there who know how to do it. But this is something that really should be the law. So something we always say is, law, not luck, because most of the people that we do meet that are survivors, it really comes down to they were in the right place at the right time with the right people. And so it really just is so important for, the advocacy to say this does happen. It's not a freak accident and to have a response plan to know what to do if and when this does happen.
And Dr. Parikh, she talks about having an AED available. That is really necessary in these situations. And I think we've learned that CPR maybe isn't as effective in, outside of a hospital setting as we'd like to think.
So, yes, AEDs are important. And yes, I think a lot of schools now have it in their gyms, and we see it at the airports, we see it in a lot of public places. But bystander CPR is also just as much important. That effective CPR is what we are looking for. So yes, it is. You need to have at least some training or some experience in giving what's called effective CPR, so that it supports blood flow to your brain. That's the whole idea, is when you're doing CPR.
Well, Dr. Parikh, I know that you're going to be part of a panel here at WJCT Studios on April 3rd at 5:30 p.m. Thank you so much for being here today, sharing this. Lexi, thanks so much for sharing your story with us.